after spending countless hours of the last few months eating, sleeping, and pretty much breathing Bleach, I figured that the channel needs a change of pace. And also because I don't want to burn myself out talking about Bleach. There are still plenty of videos to come, so look forward to them. But for this new video series that I'm doing on my channel, I'm going to be analysing each arc of Hunter x Hunter. The aim is to break down the story, reveal the growth of the characters during each successive arc, and to try to understand the themes that Togashi was trying to convey through each arc of the series. There is a lot of mixed opinion about Hunter x Hunter. Some people hold it to a very high pedestal and think of it as peak fiction, while others don't see the hype and think of it as just another generic shonen. And when it comes to my opinion of Hunter x Hunter, I had my own history with the show before I started to reread the whole series again just for these videos. It took me over the span of 2 years to watch the entirety of the Hunter x Hunter 2011 anime. I went into the series not really knowing much. It was just another shonen that I had to tick off of my list. At the time, I was working my way through a list of shonen series just so that I could hold this coveted title of I've seen every single shonen. And when it came to Hunter x Hunter, it was a really dragged out experience. I remember watching it and then dropping off for months and then watching it again. And this was the case until I got to the Chimera Ant arc. Personally, I found that arc really fascinating. Everything up until that point I'd been watching for almost 2 years, and I finished off the Chimera Ant arc within 1 week. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were aspects of the series that I really loved prior to the Chimera Ant arc, like the Heaven's Arena arc, or even aspects of the York New City arc. But one thing was pretty evident after I'd finished the 2011 anime. I unfortunately just didn't pay attention to much of the Hunter x Hunter story from the first arc all the way up until the end of the Greed Island arc. And the main reason for this was that I was too focused with wanting to tick the series off of my list so that I could move on to the next one. And it is this reason which is pushing me to create this video series. I want to re-experience the entirety of Hunter x Hunter, and I want to break down the different elements of the story within each arc, in the hopes that I learn something new about the series, and I pick up on elements that I missed maybe during my first run through of the anime. So for the sake of context, I'm doing these reviews based off of the manga, because it's the purest form of Togashi's story, and it avoids any of the inconsistencies which either of the anime adaptations may have. So with that exposition dump over, let's begin my review of the first Hunter x Hunter arc, the Hunter exam arc. The first arc of Hunter x Hunter, the Hunter exam arc, spans from the first chapter to the 38th chapter of the manga. It was published between March 1998 to January 1999. Hunter x Hunter is written and illustrated by the famous mangaka Yoshihiro Togashi. In 2018, during the 50th anniversary of Weekly Shonen Jump, we learn more about the creator of Hunter x Hunter through his comments in the 3rd volume of the Shonen Jump exhibition. We quickly learn through this interview that Togashi is the type of mangaka who has a specific strategy that he implements into his work. This is because he cares incredibly about how he is perceived as a manga artist. Everybody knows that his breakthrough success as a mangaka was his incredibly popular series Yu Yu Hakusho. But what was his mindset after he had completed Yu Yu Hakusho? We need to know this so that we can appreciate how Hunter x Hunter began as a series. After the abrupt conclusion of Yu Yu Hakusho, Togashi started a new sci-fi manga called Level E. He wanted to show a different side of himself as a creator to his audience. His desire was to detach himself from the reader's expectations, which they had formed from his previous work. You can see even before the creation of Hunter x Hunter, Togashi wanted to create a series which would keep the audience guessing. After his sci-fi manga ended, he decided to create a battle manga, but he went into the series wanting to make it a hit. He studied the reader polls and tried to understand what his audience wanted from a manga. He himself describes Hunter x Hunter as a die-hard battle manga, which is combined with a deep story. He even goes on to describe the protagonist Gon as a main character who has never been seen before in the pages of Weekly Shonen Jump, because at first glance he may appear bright-eyed and innocent like so many of his contemporaries, but the difference with this character is his unwavering determination in battle, and how this monstrous determination gives hints of a darker aspect to Gon's character. But rest assured, during these arc analysis videos, I'll be going through how Gon's character changes, and how these glimpses of a darker aspect of his character are capitalized upon by Togashi later on in the series. Togashi at this point has been writing Hunter x Hunter for 22 years. His chapter count of 391 pales in comparison to other series like One Piece, which started in 1999 and is nearing 1000 chapters. Togashi has become infamous in the manga community for regularly taking breaks and going on long hiatuses, even to the point that frustrated fans refer to Hunter x Hunter as hiatus. These breaks stem from his history of health issues that he sustained during the publication of Yu Yu Hakusho. He was under constant pressure from Shonen Jump to meet their strict weekly deadlines. Because of this, unlike so many other manga authors, his health began to deteriorate. They also put additional pressure onto him by forcing him into writing his manga in a particular way, which would match with the ethos of Shonen Jump. They forced him to take the story into directions which clashed with his own creative ideas. During the publication of Yu Yu Hakusho, he was prevented from creatively expressing himself the way that he wanted to, and it was for this reason that he became disillusioned and demotivated. And this ultimately came full circle with the unexpected conclusion of Yu Yu Hakusho, a series that was very near and dear to my heart. Some believe that these events led to Togashi making a one-of-a-kind agreement with Shonen Jump, who were desperate for another successful manga which would parallel the successes of Yu Yu Hakusho. Some say that this contract granted Togashi with freedom from the strict deadlines, as well as having creative liberty to write his story the way that he wants to. Sure enough, with this creative freedom, Togashi was able to create a series which would rival the success of Yu Yu Hakusho. Despite hardly seeing Hunter x Hunter in the pages of Weekly Shonen Jump, whenever a manga volume is published, the sales speak for themselves. A new manga volume of Hunter x Hunter rivals the sales of a popular series at that time. Despite the long breaks and the hiatuses, Hunter x Hunter is a global hit. The manga has had 2 anime adaptations, the first releasing in 1999 and the second in 2011. And the reason that I've mentioned all of these details and give a little bit of a backstory about Togashi is so that you know the unique history behind Hunter x Hunter, and a little bit of an explanation behind the long breaks which may deter a lot of people from getting into the series. Hopefully through these arc analysis videos I can convince a handful of people to start reading or experiencing Hunter x Hunter. Despite the long breaks in serialization, I do believe that Hunter x Hunter has been created with a lot of love, care and attention to detail, and it is for this very reason that I'm going to now begin my Hunter exam arc analysis and try to pick up on all of the details that Togashi drops throughout the series. The first arc revolves around applicants from all over the world undertaking the Hunter exam. Upon its completion, successful applicants are granted permission to become a professional hunter. The Hunter Association, which is first mentioned in chapter 12, are responsible for the examination. Becoming a professional hunter automatically makes you one of the most gifted members of society. Upon successful completion of the Hunter exam, a hunter license is given to you, and this gives you permission to travel anywhere in the world. They are also granted permission to partake in activities which are forbidden for ordinary people. An example of this would be to hunt for treasures or even animals. So our story begins with our protagonist Gon wanting to follow in his father's footsteps by becoming a professional hunter. This first arc of the series revolves around his journey to acquire his hunter license. Thankfully, this arc is broken down into several easy to digest portions, which helps to break down and analyze the story as well as seeing the involvement of the different characters during each phase of the story. In the opening pages of the first chapter, a hunter is described as being fascinated by strange beasts, uncovering hidden treasures, exploring long forgotten mythical lands, and most notably having a desire to learn about the mysterious unknown. Someone who is enticed by the allure of being a hunter resides on an island named and shaped after a whale. We see Gon, who is camouflaged under leaves, trying to fish for the elusive master of the swamp. He is trying to catch this incredibly large fish because of a wager that he makes with his aunt. If he isn't able to catch this fish, then he won't be given permission to take part in the hunter exam. One thing that we quickly learn about Gon is that he is incredibly ambitious, and he is willing to put in the work to progress towards his desire with very little delay. This introduction to his character tells us everything that we need to know. He feels strongly about partaking in the hunter exam. His determination leads him to catch this large fish which 5 men put together would find difficult to do. His aunt obviously never expected him to complete this task because she is reluctant for him to take part in the hunter exam. Her feelings of reluctance stem from the fact that she doesn't want Gon to follow in his father's footsteps, the very father who had abandoned Gon as a baby, in order to continue with his life as a professional hunter. The first chapter of the series has a pivotal moment that is omitted from the 2011 anime. This flashback introduces us to a character called Kite, who plays a very important role in a later arc. But aside from that, this moment also serves to introduce Gon to the concept of a hunter, as well as explaining how he knew that his father was a hunter. As well as this, we find out that Kite learnt everything that he knew about being a hunter from Gon's father. After teaching all of the basics about being a hunter to Kite, he gave him one final test, which is to find him. This is what leads Kite to Whale Island, and thus very briefly introduces his character into the series, as well as explaining the profound impact that he has on Gon's character at such an early stage in his life. Kite explains how Gon's father is a one-of-a-kind legendary hunter, how everyone pales in comparison to him. It is Kite who tells Gon that his father is still alive, and you can even go as far as to say that it is Kite who instills within Gon his desire to become a professional hunter, to follow in his father's footsteps. I definitely feel that this scene should not have been omitted from the 2011 anime. It is an excellent way to briefly introduce Kite's character into the series, and it makes his reintroduction during the Chimera Ant arc even more impactful. Also, I think it is quite silly to omit a scene which is vital to understanding how Gon formed his desire to become a professional hunter. When Gon's aunt explains how his father had left him with her when he was just a baby, Gon's determination to become a hunter isn't wavered, as he tells her that being a hunter must be an important job, so much so that family comes second. His aunt is protective over him, and finds finds it difficult to accept that Gon wants to become just like his father, but Gon has no desire to live a simple life. He even explains that becoming a hunter isn't something that a weakling can do. Sure enough, throughout the series and even as early as this arc, we understand the life-threatening danger that is associated with becoming a hunter. Gon's goal to become a hunter also stems from a need that he has to actualize his full potential. Knowing that he is the son of a legendary hunter, and learning about the legend of his father from the first professional hunter that we see in the series, Kite, all of these notable characters that have been introduced into Gon's life push him to begin his journey of growth and development. Knowing that he is the son of someone great not only makes you want to see how far Gon can go, but it also builds a sense of anticipation as you look forward to the moment where Gon will finally meet his father again. But before all of this, he must first partake in the hunter exam to become a professional hunter. After beginning his journey and embarking onto a ship, he says goodbye to his aunt and tells her that he will return one day as a great hunter, but he is quickly grounded by the other applicants who are on the ship. They scold him for his bright-eyed optimism, stating that there are many people who aspire to become a hunter, but out of these several hundred applicants, there are only a handful that are accepted. Not only is there no guarantee that you will become a professional hunter, there is also every chance that this exam is the last thing that you'll ever do. This is no longer a childish dream. He is immediately told not to get cocky and underestimate the difficulty of the task which lies ahead of him. And this is how Gon's journey to find his father and to become a professional hunter like him begins. After this initial introduction into the world of Hunter x Hunter, we then begin the first phase of several phases of the hunter exam, the preliminary phase. It is said that the pass rate for the hunter exam is less than 1 in 100,000. This incredibly low pass rate is highlighted during Gon's first night on the boat. There is a huge storm that tosses around most of the applicants, resulting in them being injured or even becoming seasick. The captain of the boat, who seems to be screening the applicants in this very early stage, explores his ship to realize that only 3 candidates are still able to move. One of them is of course Gon, and the other 2 we learn are Kurapika and Leorio. Gon further proves why he is one of the best applicants on the ship by predicting a storm that is bigger than the one from last night is on its way. This of course impresses the captain as he immediately realizes that this is Jin's son. He further assesses Gon's suitability as a hunter by asking him the size of the storm and when he thinks they will hit it. When Gon answers him with precise details of when the storm will hit, the captain realizes that he didn't just make a lucky guess. When the captain announces that there is going to be another storm which is twice the size of the one from last night, nearly all of the applicants leave the ship and sail back on lifeboats. Only 3 candidates remain, and of course this is Gon, Kurapika and Leorio. Through the preliminary phase of the exam, we understand why only 1 in 100,000 applicants stay till the end and pass to become a hunter. Becoming a hunter is highly sought after. Most of the applicants didn't know that the hunter exam began as soon as they boarded the ship, and this proves to be true even for Kurapika and Leorio. When the captain asks the 3 remaining applicants on his ship why they want to become a hunter, Gon replies enthusiastically, as he obviously says that he wants to follow in his father's footsteps. But Kurapika and Leorio don't want to reveal their reasonings to someone who is just transporting them to the location of the exam. When the captain reveals that he is assessing their suitability as a hunter, each of them begin to reveal their reasonings and their purpose behind becoming a hunter. The driving motive for Kurapika's character is that he is the last of his clan, called the Kurta clan. He desires to become a hunter so that he can capture a group called the Phantom Troop. They are a villainous group that robbed the eyes of his people and killed the remaining members of his clan. As the only survivor of his clan, he desires revenge. The only way that he can do this is to become a blacklist hunter so that he can accept the A-ranked bounty that is placed on the Phantom Troop. His is a dark desire which may lead him to his death, but Kurapika reveals that he does not fear death. What he does fear is that his anger towards the Phantom Troop will lessen with each passing day, so he wants to waste as little time as possible with these fresh feelings of hatred in order to exact his revenge. An incredibly dark reason for becoming a hunter when it's compared against Gon's reasoning. As for Leorio's reasons for becoming a hunter, he initially says that it's because he wants a lot of money, but later in chapter 7 the real reason behind why he wants to become a hunter is revealed. His real reasoning is that he had lost a friend because he couldn't pay for his medical bills. Because of this, he had decided to become a doctor. He wants to help the sick and at the same time not charge them for his help. He feels that the medical bills that he couldn't pay for felt like a price had been placed onto his friend's life. To become a doctor also requires funding, so he desires to acquire a hunter license, which will make it easier for him to begin his studies. Kurapika, Gon and Leorio quickly become acquainted as they begin to help and look out for each other throughout the exam. When they reach land, they are advised by the captain of the ship to travel towards a pine tree which is on top of a hill, advising them that it is the best place to go to in order to locate the exam hall. None of the applicants were given the precise location of the exam hall, they were only told the general location of it. On their way to the pine tree, they travel through a village which appears to be deserted, and it is here that they are tested by the mind-boggling two-choice quiz. After passing this test, they are shown a path which will lead them to the navigators who will guide them to the exam hall. Without the help of the navigators, it is impossible to reach the location of the exam. It is their job to know where the exam is being held, because its location changes every year, and just like everything that has occurred thus far, they are tested once more by the navigators. Considering they haven't even arrived at the exam hall, they have already been put through their paces. Their navigators end up being a family of magical beasts called Kiriko. After passing their trial, they praise each of them, and in particular Gon, firstly for his speed and his perception, as well as his ability to distinguish the differences between the two Kiriko, which demonstrates the close bond that he shares with animals, a skill that is vital for an up-and-coming hunter to have. I mentioned previously that the odds of passing the hunter exam is 1 in 100,000. We now learn that the odds of an applicant actually reaching the exam hall is 1 in 10,000. Many applicants end up resitting the exam as it is very unlikely that they are going to pass on their first run. Apparently, once in every 3 years, a talented rookie does appear and ends up passing on the first run. But for most of the rookies and amateurs, they mentally crack under the pressure of the test. Most of them are so overwhelmed by the older veteran applicants that they never try to take the exam again. I mean, up until this point, we have seen how difficult the preliminary phase was, how applicants who may have been applying for the wrong reasons were weeded out during the preliminary phase, through the creative and varied screening process that occurred. The reason why so many people put themselves through the hunter exam is because of the perks that come with the hunter license. You are given access to enter almost every country. As well as this, after becoming a hunter, all available public resources are available at your disposal. Becoming a hunter is also very lucrative. Of the top 100 richest people in the world, 60 of them are hunters. So the hunter license gives people fame and fortune. Even the cost of a hunter license, if you were to sell one, would bring you back a very large sum of money. Kurapika explains to Gon that the job of a hunter is to maintain order, and this is order in both society and in nature. He explains how there are low-life hunters who pursue bagging animals and searching for treasures. He describes them as being amateurs, because they are contrasted with pro hunters, who desire to preserve and protect nature. They locate historical artifacts, preserve endangered species, as well as tracking down and hunting wanted criminals. But to partake in the activities of a pro hunter requires a lot of skill and experience, and it is for this reason that the hunter exam is so rigorous. Although acquiring a hunter license will lead to a rewarding career, it will not be easy. In chapter 5, they finally arrive at the location of the exam and meet the other applicants who all pass the screening process. Not too long after arriving, they are introduced to Hisoka the magician. He severs the arms of another applicant after he had bumped into him and not apologized. We learned that he had applied the year before and was even expected to pass the exam, but he was disqualified after he had attacked an examiner that he had disagreed with. He is considered to be the main antagonist of the hunter exam arc, and rightfully so, as we are told that he had killed 20 applicants the previous year. Gon, Kurapika and Leorio are advised to stay away from him. Before the first phase of the hunter exam begins, we are introduced to another key character who becomes central to the story of Hunter x Hunter. Of course, I am talking about Killua, who is introduced in chapter 6. The hunter exam finally begins with 404 applicants successfully passing the initial screening process. The first phase of the exam begins as they are tasked to keep up with the examiner called Satots. He is their examiner of the first phase of the exam and he will guide them to the second phase. The applicants simply have to follow him. In chapter 6, Killua and Gon meet for the first time, realizing that they are both the same age, 12 years old. The first phase appears to be an endurance test as they have been running for 3 hours and have nearly covered 40 kilometers. Not knowing when they will reach their destination and only being given a simple order to follow their examiner, this also shows how mentally taxing this first phase of the exam is, as well as being physically tiring. Even after having run 60 kilometers, none of the applicants have dropped out so far, proving that this 1 in 10,000 that have survived up until this point are the best of the best. After about 80 kilometers, they approach a set of stairs that they are forced to climb. Gradually, as time is elapsing, the examiner is picking up the pace, and he does so as they all start climbing up the stairs. As they approach the halfway mark of the stairs, 37 individuals have dropped out so far. During this climb, Gon and Killua begin to be acquainted with each other, as Gon asks Killua why he is applying for the hunter exam. So far, we have had reasons for each of the main characters in the series, and we finally learned that Killua doesn't have a particular reason for applying. He was just interested with the exam and he heard that it was really difficult. He tells Gon that all of the challenges that he has faced during this exam so far have not really been that difficult. In exchange, Gon tells him his reasons for wanting to become a hunter. He explains how he had met Kite, and how Kite had told him many stories about his father. He had told Gon about the status of a triple star hunter, and said that his father would have been classed as one if he had bothered applying for it. A triple star hunter is the highest class of hunter. There are less than 10 in the world. The requirements for someone to attain this title include food, undertaking multiple activities which result in a global change, or if that person has discovered something of historical significance. Despite how impressive and experienced Kite appeared to be, Gon noted as a child that Kite seemed to be prouder of his father's achievements than of his own, and this is what made Gon decide that he was going to follow in his father's footsteps. I guess he wanted to become a man who others could be proud of. We also learn more about Kurapika and his desire to track down the Phantom Troop during this portion of the Hunter exam. He explains that his clan was targeted because of their scarlet eyes. They are called scarlet eyes because his clan possesses a special trait. Their eyes turn into a deep scarlet color when they are passionate or excited. Kurapika tells Leorio that their eyes stay this scarlet color when they die. He explains how this deep red color is regarded as one of the most beautiful colors in the world, and this is the reason why the Phantom Troop had targeted his clan and had stolen all of the eyes from all of their bodies. They were all killed for the byproduct of their death, the scarlet eyes. Kurapika clearly defines his motive to Leorio, telling him that he has sworn to capture the Phantom Troop, as well as recovering all of the eyes that were stolen from the dead bodies of his clan members. Becoming a hunter is one step of his plan. After he acquires his hunter license, doors will become open for him. He will be able to access the underworld where the wealthy and powerful exchange goods. We learn that Kurapika will sacrifice his own pride if it means that he can restore the dignity of his fallen clansmen. So far, out of all of the characters that I have seen, Kurapika's motive appears to be the most drawing element to the series. It pulls you into his quest for revenge, as well as looking forward to the introduction of the Phantom Troop later on in the series. As they approach the exit of the tunnel that the applicants have been running through for the past several hours, the examiner Satots explains that the next leg of the first phase will now begin. They will now be traversing through the Milzy wetlands. He warns them that this area is incredibly dangerous, because magical beasts inhabit this area, and they prey on humans in particular. All of the applicants that have made it this far acknowledge the dangers which lie ahead of them, and give their consent to proceed. They travel through a thick fog as several individuals are consumed by the magical beasts. During this segment of the first phase, Hisoka starts to develop a bloodlust. This causes him to take out several applicants. He declares that he is going to play examiner and decide who is worthy to proceed or not. Leorio challenges Hisoka head on, and surprisingly Gon backs him up. He ends up knocking out Leorio and decides that he and Gon have passed his test. He does a complete 180 in mood. His face of sinister malice changes into a smile as he squats down to Gon's eye level and tells him that he will grow up to become a fine hunter. This strange encounter occurs just before the ending of the first phase of the exam, as Hisoka carries a unconscious Leorio to the second phase. Satots guides them to the location of the next phase. At this point, only 150 applicants remain. Satots thinks to himself that this batch is exceptional, as he was expecting only 100 applicants to survive. He states that the next phase will be incredibly difficult, as he predicts that only 50 or less may survive at the end of it. The theme of the second phase of the hunter exam is cooking, as the applicants are introduced to their examiners, who are gourmet hunters. They are considered to be world-class chefs. They travel the world in order to search for rare cuisine, and to acquire exotic ingredients for their food. For the second phase, they are tasked with preparing a dish for each of the two gourmet hunters, Menchi and Buhara. The applicants are told that they will only pass the second phase if they are able to satisfy each of them. Once the two of them can no longer eat, the testing period will be over. So not only is this a test to make an appetizing dish, it is also under timed conditions. They need to be quick to prepare their dishes before the other applicants satiate the hunger of the examiners. Buhara's dish of choice is roasted pig. They are unaware that the only pig around them is one of the most dangerous pigs in the world. They have been tasked to capture and cook this dangerous pig for the examiner. Gon and a few of the other applicants easily complete this task and satisfy the first examiner, but then the second phase becomes difficult when Menchi asks the applicants to make her sushi, which is a dish that none of them have heard of. This proves to be too difficult as all of the remaining applicants fail her test. Menchi is a single-star hunter. She is one of the world's most famous chefs, and she is incredibly difficult to please. She also describes herself as a very harsh critic. For the final half of the second phase, only 70 individuals remain, and unfortunately Menchi decides that they have all failed. This is until the chairman of the Hunter Association intervenes. Chairman Netero convinces her to change the dish that she had selected, and he even advises for her to partake in the test so that she can set an example for the applicants. So instead of making sushi, she has changed the test to boiling an egg. They are tasked to locate an egg from a spider eagle, who lays the nests within deep ravines. By the end of this revised portion of the second phase, only 42 candidates remain. A lot of the applicants underestimated the skills that were required for a gourmet chef, but this portion of the exam serves to teach the applicants not to underestimate a gourmet chef. They certainly possess all of these skills and qualities that are required of a hunter, but the difference is that they specialize in cuisine. And through this portion of the exam, it is explained how difficult a gourmet hunter's job is, as as they must traverse through unexplored, dangerous locations in the pursuit of exotic ingredients with undiscovered tastes. This phase of the Hunter exam is considered one of the longer, more dragged out segments of the Hunter exam arc, but personally I didn't mind it as it helped to explain the significance of all the different types of hunters, and in particular focusing on gourmet hunters. The examiners have all stated that this batch of applicants has some real contenders to pass. They note that a few candidates appear to possess powerful auras, giving Hisoka as an example because he is exuding an aura of bloodlust. During the downtime between the second phase and the third phase, we learn that Killua comes from a family of assassins. He opens up to Gon as a friendship begins to form between the two of them. His family appears to have high expectations of him, but he has no desire to live up to these expectations, as he would much rather decide on his own future and make decisions based on himself rather than on their expectations. During the conversation between the two of them, Chairman Netero approaches the two of them. He offers to play a game with them, and if they win then he will issue their licenses immediately, without the need to partake in further phases of the Hunter exam. The rules to this game at midnight are simple. All Gon and Killua have to do is to take the ball away from Chairman Netero before the ship that they are on reaches its destination. While everybody else is resting, Gon and Killua are pushing their bodies to their very limits against the chairman. Killua frustratingly tries his best but to no avail. Gon is then tagged in and attempts to take the ball away from Netero. During the entirety of this game, the chairman is assessing the potential of both of them. He is impressed by their level of skill and even surprised by some of their maneuvers, but he also mentally critiques them, as he says that despite their level of skill they appear to still be immature. In chapter 14, several hours of this game have already passed, as Gon and Killua now decide to attack the chairman at once, displaying his level of skill and the room for growth and improvement that Gon and Killua have yet to undergo. He evades the two of them and prevents them from getting the ball. Killua appears to be getting frustrated because every tactic that the two of them have applied doesn't seem to work against him. Even when it appears that they have outsmarted Netero and they are about to have the ball within their grasp, he demonstrates his incredible speed and agility by getting to the ball before the two of them. Killua ends up conceding, much to Gon's surprise, as he realizes that Netero hasn't even used his right hand or his left leg, stating that even if the two of them played this game with Netero for a whole year, they would be no closer to getting the ball from him. During this scene, a difference is highlighted between the two boys. Killua assumes that Gon is also going to concede victory and leave with him, but Gon decides to stay. Killua of course thinks that it is pointless and he is angered by Gon's response, but Gon tells him that even if he cannot get the ball from him, then there is still every chance that Netero might use his right hand. It might not be a complete victory, but it is a small victory, which is enough motive for Gon to continue without giving up. It is this bright-eyed optimism that Killua is always surprised by, and this is the first in several occasions where Killua looks at Gon wide-eyed and surprised. During the series, we realize that Gon's positivity and optimism is essential to the growth of Killua's character, as we learn that there are darker aspects to his life. As he spends more time with Gon and is exposed to his attitude more, he begins to change as a character himself, distancing himself from his roots as an assassin. But as of this moment, during the Hunter exam arc, this character growth is far from being actualized, because after Killua had left Gon and Netero to continue their game, out of frustration he killed two other applicants. This 12-year-old, who acts like an unassuming child with Gon, seems to have a devilish alter ego. He admits to himself that if he had continued playing with Netero, then he would have wanted that ball bad enough to kill for it. Meanwhile, Gon continues the game with Netero, as he utilizes feints and misdirection in order to make Netero use his right hand. Through his persistence, Gon eventually succeeds in making Netero use his right hand. He is overjoyed, but his celebrations are cut short as he collapses. Of course, he does all of this after partaking in the preliminaries, the first phase and the second phase of the Hunter exam. After resting, they eventually arrive at their destination, where the third phase of the Hunter exam will take place. They have landed on top of a tall structure called Trick Tower, and for the third phase of the exam, they are tasked to reach the bottom of the tower alive, and they have 72 hours to do this in. At the beginning of the third phase, only 40 candidates remain. Gon teams up with Killua, Kurapika, Leorio and Tompa. They form a 5-person group. The examiner for this phase of the exam is called Lippo. He is a blacklist hunter. He is also a prison warden, and he has offered to shorten the sentences of criminals by 1 year for every hour that they are able to stall the contestants. He aims to examine the candidates in group situations. He wants to see how they react while working with others. The first test that they encounter during this phase is to battle as a group. In order to pass, they have to win 3 out of the 5 battles that they're going to face against different tower prisoners. They are allowed to battle in whatever way suits them best. During these battles, there can be no draws. The only way to win is to either defeat the opponent or make your opponent admit defeat. Tompa goes first, but he immediately gives up. Tompa is of course making it very difficult for the group, and Leorio is losing his patience with him. During this phase of the test, they are being tested on how well they can work together as a group. Tompa is of course purposefully sabotaging their efforts and holding them back, but they have to remember to work as a team even if one of them is not a team player. Gon is up next, and he is challenged by his opponent to see whose candle can burn the longest. When he realizes that the prisoner had cheated and gave Gon a candle that would burn quicker, Gon uses his initiative and blows out his opponent's candle, and thus winning his match. Kurapika is up next, but he easily defeats his opponent, who pretends to be a member of the Phantom Troop with a fake tattoo on his back. During this battle, we see Kurapika's scarlet eyes for the first time. He defeats his opponent in one strike and proves that his feelings of anger towards the Phantom Troop are still very fresh. One thing to note about Kurapika's battle is that it was a fight to the death. According to the rules, the only way to win is to either kill your opponent or to make them admit defeat. Kurapika technically hadn't won yet after that first strike, since his opponent wasn't killed and he hadn't admitted defeat. Kurapika refuses to kill his opponent or to attack him any further. He says that his opponent had received enough of a beating, and to attack him anymore would have been senseless brutality. During this moment, we can see that Kurapika has a strong sense of right and wrong. His sense of morality prevents him from behaving in a dishonorable way, but we do see a glimpse of the anger that he holds towards the Phantom Troop during this encounter. It makes you wonder how he will react if you were to come across a member of the Phantom Troop. We also learn that Kurapika isn't afraid of killing anyone, but at this moment in time he hasn't ever killed in his life. While Gon and his group wait for Kurapika's opponent to revive himself, Hisoka is declared as the first person to pass the third phase of the exam, and he had done so within 6 hours and 17 minutes. Kurapika's opponent eventually admits defeat while Leorio is placing bets with his opponent. Leorio loses his match and he loses all of their betting hours on her. Because of Leorio's terrible betting, 50 hours have now been deducted from the group. Because of this, they have less than 10 hours to pass the third phase of the Hunter exam. Killua is up next, and it is revealed that he is fighting against John S, the Dissector. He is revealed as being a terrible mass murderer. He had apparently killed 146 people. He had dissected his victims to such an extent that it was difficult to clear the murder scene of all of the small pieces. He had even killed children as young as 11. He was given the name Dissector because all of his victims were cut up in no less than 50 pieces. He had apparently done all of this with his bare hands. Killua's opponent is hyped up as this evil, unstoppable force. Leorio even tells Killua not to fight him, and that he won't be angry with Killua if they fail the third phase of the exam. Killua ignores these warnings and fearlessly approaches his opponent. He asks John S if there are any conditions for their battle, but the criminal is only concerned with tearing Killua's body up into pieces with his bare hands. Killua gathers that he wants a fight to the death. He immediately demonstrates his skills as an assassin as he rips out the heart of his opponent. For the first time, everybody sees how violent Killua really is, while he crushes the heart of his opponent while he begs for it back. Everybody, including the prisoners, appear to be shocked by this. They all wonder who Killua really is, but Gon explains that he is a member of an elite assassin family. What's funny is that Gon doesn't say anything to Killua about the brutal way that he had killed his opponent. He just simply moves on unfazed by what just happened. The final test of the third phase, they meet a fork in the road, where they have to decide between two paths. One path is incredibly long and the other is incredibly short, but the short path will only allow 3 of the 5 to pass. The group only have 1 hour remaining in their time. They are told that the long path will take at least 45 hours to complete, while the short path will take about 3 minutes. This difficult choice is decided by Gon when he tells everybody to choose the long path. They then break the wall between the two paths and take the shorter path, leading them to victory and thus completing the third phase of the Hunter exam. Gon's quick thinking and intuition has helped him to get through a lot of situations during the Hunter exam. So at the end of the third phase, only 25 applicants remain. They are told that they have yet to face another 2 phases of the Hunter exam before it is concluded. The fourth phase involves a manhunt which is taking place on Zevil Island. The 25 applicants are all given plates with numbers on them. These plates with numbers on them will decide who will hunt who. In chapter 24, we learn that Gon has been ordered to hunt Hisoka and to steal his badge. He spends most of his time following Hisoka and coming up with a strategy to steal his badge. The candidates have to remember that while they are hunting, someone else is hunting them. The remaining 25 who are partaking in the fourth phase have been whittled down to the best who have the closest chances of becoming a hunter. None of them are to be underestimated. Gon uses his time to think of a way to use his fishing rod to take Hisoka's badge. The issue is Hisoka has a lot of speed and power that Gon has to find a way to overcome. He tries to perfect his aim before he confronts his target. What I like about this phase compared to the last one is that all of the candidates have to work on their own. Gon could have easily teamed up with Leorio, Kurapika and Killua and they could have got their badges working as a team, but they proved themselves themselves by working alone trying to accomplish the task that's been given to them. The task is also set up in a way that it is difficult to work as a group, because one of the members who you've been working in a group with may now have become your target during this phase. Gon figures out that the best way to take Hisoka's badge is to wait for him to be distracted. He needs to time his attack perfectly so that he can successfully steal the badge. During this phase, we learn that Hisoka only kills individuals that he deems worthy. He doesn't like to kill individuals who he feels are yet to reach their full potential. He feels that it is wasteful to kill them so prematurely, and this is why he doesn't kill Kurapika and Leorio when he confronts them. His encounter with Leorio and Kurapika causes him to develop an intense bloodlust. His aura is so strong that it scares away all of the animals around him, and it is enough for even Gon to notice, which causes him to tremble in fear. When Hisoka is lost in his own bloodlust while he attacks an unassuming applicant, Gon takes advantage of Hisoka being distracted as he quickly snipes his badge. But while Gon is trying to escape from Hisoka, he is targeted himself by Gereta, who is after his badge. He ends up paralyzing Gon to take his badge, but Hisoka intervenes and kills Gereta. He explains to Gon that the effects of the poison that was used to immobilize him takes about 10 days to relieve. Hisoka returns Gon's badge to him, but Gon refuses to take it. Despite having a toxin in his blood which should have him paralyzed for 10 days, Gon gets up determined not to accept Hisoka's charity. He doesn't want to owe Hisoka anything, and for this reason he tries to return his badge back to Hisoka. He tells Gon that he didn't kill him because he wanted to see him grow up and to become stronger. He desires to battle Gon once he is a worthy opponent, not right now while he is still growing and developing. To knock the stubbornness out of Gon, Hisoka punches him and tells him that if he can return a punch like that back to him, only then will he take Gon's badge back. This is a very interesting interaction between the two of them. Hisoka forces Gon to take his badge back and awaits for the day that Gon can return the punch back to him. We can assume that this is a hanging plot thread which is setting up another encounter between the two of them in the future. Despite how talented and gifted Gon is, and how far he has made it through the hunter exam, his talents and skills are no match for a hunter like Hisoka. He still has a very long way to go. It is humbling to see him being beat down despite all of the victories that he has had up until this point. Gon eventually meets with Kurapika and Leorio and helps Leorio to acquire the badge from his target. At the end of the 4th phase, it appears that only 9 candidates remain, and out of the 9, it appears that 6 of them are newcomers who are sitting the exam for the first time. During the time between the 4th phase and the 5th phase, Gon reveals to Kurapika that he was upset that he wasn't able to repay Hisoka by punching him back. Gon says that he was feeling alone and that he wanted someone next to him, and it is for this reason that he went looking for Kurapika and Leorio. But he thanks Gon because if it wasn't for him then they wouldn't be here. His help was invaluable to them during the final moments of the 4th phase. Kurapika reassures Gon that he does indeed have the strength to go on, despite him not being able to repay Hisoka by punching him back. Before the final phase of the hunter exam begins, Chairman Netero holds a conversation with each of the remaining applicants. He asks each of them among the other candidates who holds the most of their attention, as well as asking who is it that they would want to fight the least. These questions help to summarize the relationships that are formed between the different characters. It also helps to solidify any ideas of friendships or rivalries which have been formed between them. Hisoka is asked first, and he responds by saying of all of the contestants he is most interested in Gon and Killua, and at the same time he is least interested in fighting the both of them, and this is because he doesn't want to fight them just yet, but rather at a time in the future when they are stronger and become worthy opponents. And going over the other characters of interest, Killua says that Gon interests him the most. Gon responds by saying that Hisoka interests him the most, while also saying that the people he would least want to fight are Killua, Kurapika and Leorio, proving that a friendship or a bond has formed between the 4 of them. A lot of the contestants appear to be fearful or not desiring to fight Hisoka. Kurapika is among them, and he says that the candidate who holds most of his attention is Gon. And lastly, Leorio adds a lot of meaningful commentary behind why Gon has held most of his attention, and he says that it is because he respects him, and he would like for Gon to make it all the way to the end of the exam and to finally become a hunter. And he says that the person he would least want to fight is Gon, because of the feelings of respect that he has for him. So in chapter 33, 3 days after the end of the 4th round, the final phase of the hunter exam begins. This final phase will involve one-on-one duels between all of the contestants. The difference with this one-on-one duel system is that if you have one victory then you will have passed the exam. This is an inversion of the regular tournament system, when typically a winner moves on to the next round, eventually until there is only one person remaining. With the way that this pyramid system is organized, there will only be one loser while all of the others will have won. Netero must have been impressed with this batch of candidates, as he didn't want to get rid of a lot of them, as he felt that most of them were worthy enough to become hunters. Netero had decided that the people who were favored the most from his round of questioning had the most chances of winning. Killua compares his position in the brackets to Gon, as he wonders what is it that he is lacking that made him placed lower than Gon. There appears to be only one rule, that you are not allowed to kill your opponent, and if this is to occur then the person who has killed their opponent will be disqualified, and in this case the exam will be over, causing the remaining applicants to automatically pass the exam. In chapter 33, the first battle begins between Hanzo and Gon. Hanzo appears to have the upper hand as he is beating down Gon, trying to get an admission of defeat from him. Gon is completely outmatched, but he is unwilling to quit. For 3 hours he beats down and tortures Gon, trying to make him give up, but despite how badly he is being beaten, he continues to get back up, and this shocks Hanzo. Even after Hanzo threatens to break Gon's arm, he still does not admit defeat. Hanzo's actions have infuriated Leorio and even Kurapika, who is usually reserved. During this battle, Gon is made to face the difference between him and Hanzo. Even Killua acknowledges the difference between Hanzo and Gon. In a typical shonen, the protagonist would have found a way to overcome their obstacle, but in this moment, Gon is made to realize that no matter what he does during this battle, he will not close the gap between him and Hanzo. But despite the difference in their experience and their strength, Gon does not give up, and he's determined in the face of death. He is not willing to say "I quit," and he would rather fearlessly die than to say it. The reason why Gon is so stubborn is because he says that he wants to meet his father. He truly believes that one day he will be able to meet him, but if he loses here, he believes that he won't be able to see him, and it is for this reason that he will not go back on his word. This demonstrates that whatever decision you make, big or small, will either lead you towards or take you away from your goal. It would be easy for Gon to just give up here, as he has plenty of chances to redeem himself in the upcoming fights, but he does not want to admit defeat because that is not the way that he wants to present himself in front of his father. Gon's stubborn determination leads to Hanzo forfeiting the match, and automatically making Gon the first person to pass the 287th Hunter exam, and this is because he can't kill Gon, and he can't find a way of making him admit defeat, so instead he just decides to wait for his next match in the bracket. Gon is knocked out by Hanzo for continuing to be stubborn, and he doesn't wake up until after the final phase of the exam is over. He learns of some upsetting news, that Killua didn't pass the exam, and this is because he had killed his opponent. Another notable event that occurs is when Hisoka is matched up with Kurapika. He whispers something into Kurapika's ear and then he voluntarily quits. We can assume that whatever he tells him is related to his desire for revenge. During Killua's battle with his opponent, it is revealed that one of the candidates had been disguised, and he was in fact Killua's older brother. After he reveals his true identity, it shocks him. His brother reveals to him that he should have no desire of his own, as he is a puppet. He wasn't born to be a hunter, but instead he was born to be a killer. Killua reveals that he didn't come here to become a hunter, and like he had mentioned previously, he took the exam because he thought it was difficult, but after going through the exam, he decides that there is something that he wants. He wants to become friends with Gon. He is fed up with killing, and he just desires a friendship. He doesn't want to be an assassin, he desires to be a normal child. Illumi tries to convince him that if he spends enough time with Gon, then he will kill him, once again trying to convince him that he was born as a killer. Illumi decides that after he passes the exam, he is going to kill Gon. Killua is left with no choice but to fight his brother. If he doesn't defeat him, then Gon's life is in danger. It appears that Killua has instincts of survival instilled within him. His cautiousness that was instilled within him from his brother results in him not facing off against very powerful opponents. Killua is so afraid of fighting his brother that he admits defeat, and as a result of not confronting his brother, puts Gon's life in danger. Illumi continues to make Killua lose all of his confidence, ordering that he will now continue to listen to him and his father. He restricts Killua by saying the only thing that he has to do in his life is to listen to his orders, and the only way that he will pass the hunter exam is if his brother guides him. This encounter with his brother causes Killua to close up. After this encounter, he doesn't speak to Leorio or Kurapika despite how hard they are trying to talk to him. We learn later during Leorio's battle with Bordoro, Killua intervened and killed Bordoro. Killua was disqualified as these events lead to the end of the exam. Out of anger, Gon confronts Illumi, and this is the first time that we've seen this side to his character. It is an intense, unforgiving anger. He demands that Illumi apologizes to Killua. His anger causes him to grab Killua's older brother by the wrist and pull him out of his seat. He intensely grips his wrist to the point that he breaks it. Gon is determined to bring Killua back, so he finds out his home address from Illumi. He even ends up threatening him. If Illumi has been manipulating Killua this whole time to kill people not of his own choice, then he will not forgive him. We can see that Gon is very protective over his friends, as he demands Illumi to tell him where Killua's home is. We learn that Killua has returned to his family home in Kukuru Mountain. The hunter exam ends with Gon learning that the hunter license that Kite had left behind had belonged to his father. We also learn that Gon's father is considered to be an exceptional person, someone who has been registered as a top secret individual, preventing other hunters from digging up information about him. People who are of equivalent importance who are registered in the top secret files are considered to be presidents and people with incredible fortunes, and Jin Freaks is among these people. There is plenty of mystery to be revealed, and Gon's hunt for his father is just beginning. But for now, he is accompanied by Kurapika and Leorio, leading on to the next arc of the series, where they must find Killua and bring him back. What I loved about the hunter exam arc is that characters were facing off against opponents who are far stronger than them, and typically in shonen series, the solution is usually to overcome the opponent by becoming stronger or relying on the power of friendship to cause a surge in power. But in Hunter x Hunter, instead characters figure out a way to overcome their obstacles. I mentioned this previously, and I can use Gon as an example, how his determination with Hanzo led to his opponent giving up, or how he strategically came up with a way to steal Hisoka's badge, and that is something that I have to praise about Hunter x Hunter, and especially during this arc. Throughout this arc, you are rooting for the newcomers and the rookies to succeed, and indeed the rookies are some of the best applicants to have entered in the exam. At the beginning of the arc, it is hard to interpret this ratio of 1 in 100,000 succeed to become a hunter, but by the end of the arc you truly understand how hard it is. Even before you get to the exam hall, there is a rigorous screening process, and then not to mention the exam itself, which has 5 phases which appear to be never ending, each task serving to push the candidates to their absolute limits. I loved that this arc didn't have a typical tournament. Each phase felt very creative. I felt that each phase served to introduce to you an aspect of a hunter through the various different examiners who were overseeing their phases. I loved seeing the applicant numbers decrease with each passing phase, wondering how many are going to be left after this phase. What made the drop in applicants between each phase feel realistic was that during the phase we see applicants either being killed or being eliminated. I mentioned this because the hunter exam was hyped up to be a difficult exam, and through all of these different aspects it proved to be a difficult exam. During this arc I felt that the exam served its purpose to push the characters to their very limits. Through this difficult and arduous trial we see some friendships that have been formed, in particular between Kurapika, Leorio, Gon and Killua. It's great to see how they are first introduced to each other, how Leorio and Kurapika were fighting with each other, and then during the 4th phase we see Kurapika actively helping Leorio to find his target badge. In other instances we see the bond that is formed between the characters when an injustice occurs to one of their friends. In particular when Hanzo is beating down Gon, Kurapika and Leorio are both very angered by this. We also see Killua refer to Gon as his friend, clearly highlighting the impact that Gon has had on all of their lives. When Chairman Netero plays that game with Killua and Gon, you can see that he sees a lot of potential in two of them. Now if this was a typical shonen, Netero would have ended up training Gon and Killua, but instead of relying on him to train them, they are left to their own devices to grow and develop. There is this promise of them growing to become very strong. We see it hinted at here, and we see it blatantly told to us by Hisoka, as he doesn't want to kill either Gon or Killua because he thinks that they are going to grow up to become incredibly strong, and he only wants to fight them once they become worthy opponents. So when it comes to discussing the characters in this arc, I love Gon's introduction. His bright-eyed optimism and his desire feels well established. I believe in his dream to meet his father, and I love the early interactions that he has with Kite. We are aware that he is incredibly gifted and talented, but through his encounters with strong individuals, we clearly see that he has a long way yet to go. I mentioned this at the start of the video, that there is more to Gon than his bright-eyed positivity. We see hints of this darker side to his character when his anger overwhelms him after he learns what had happened to Killua, when he grabs hold of Illumi in search for an apology and for Killua's whereabouts. Another aspect of his character that I had fallen in love with was his determination. Maybe it's because I love shonen stories, but I loved how realistic his portrayal of stubbornness was, how he didn't want to accept charity from Hisoka, how he was beaten for 3 hours by Hanzo and still didn't admit defeat, and how at the end of the hunter exam arc he doesn't want to accept his hunter license. Despite everybody telling him that he had earned it fair and square, he still refuses to use it. Moving on to Gon's counterpart in this arc, Killua. When you see the two of them hanging around and behaving like children, you would not expect that Killua is the complete opposite to Gon, the way that he mercilessly kills people. And when you learn that he comes from a family of assassins, Killua is incredibly scary, and he is a great contrast to Gon's character. There is still a lot of mystery to him and his family background. He clearly wants to disassociate himself with his family in order to pursue his own passions and dreams. Some of the mystery behind him and his family is revealed in the next arc, as we understand more about how he is being manipulated by his older brother, and his feelings of hesitation and anxiousness when he faces off against a strong opponent. Next up, Kurapika has easily become one of my favorite characters from this arc. He has a very reserved personality, and he reminds me a lot of Kurama from Yu Yu Hakusho. His reasoning for partaking in the hunter exam for revenge feels very convincing, and I love the personality of his character, how he is kind to those that he considers his friends, but he immediately switches when the Phantom Troop are mentioned. Unlike all of the other characters that I have mentioned, he has a very strong and distinctive personality. What I noticed is that he is a very capable individual, and he is strong enough to hold his own during the hunter exam arc, but instead he chooses to hang around with Leorio, Gon and Killua, clearly showing that he enjoys their company. There is more to his character than this obsession with revenge, and seeing him reveal his scarlet eyes is one of the most memorable moments during this arc. And lastly, I'm mentioning Leorio, who serves as some comedic relief. He is very reactionary and is easily angered. I still wonder how on earth he made it all the way to the end of the exam and became a hunter. He isn't the coolest character to feature within this arc, but he is definitely the most outspoken
spoken, and I liked his reasoning for wanting to become a hunter. He had initially tried to convince us that it was for the money, but we quickly learned that he needs the money for the right reasons. It's interesting that everybody has a different reason for wanting to become a hunter, something that is unique to their own character. Not only this, the whole concept of a hunter is thoroughly fleshed out during this arc. There are so many mentions of the different types of hunters, as well as explaining what the successful candidates will be able to do with their hunter licenses. We get a little bit of world building, and we get to understand how the world of Hunter x Hunter works. We don't understand everything entirely, but it is definitely a great start. I feel like there is so much about the Hunter exam arc that I missed during my first run through of the series. I can now appreciate it as one of the best introductory arcs to any shonen. It succeeded in subverting my expectations. I quickly learned that strength and power isn't the most defining element during a battle in Hunter x Hunter. A lot of importance is given to strategy, utilizing your skill set in a creative manner to take down your opponent. As well as this, we learned that the series doesn't pull its punches. If a character is determined and faces off against an opponent, then they will feel their full wrath. There are consequences to punching above your height. This is seen through Gon being beat down by Hisoka and Hanzo. Because of the protagonist being a child, you might assume that Hunter x Hunter is childish or light-hearted, but from my read-through of the Hunter exam arc, I believe that it is anything but light-hearted. This arc makes me question the morality of the Hunter Association. How on earth are they able to run an exam which allows applicants to be killed? And how are they okay with people passing the exam who have killed others? I know that Killua was disqualified right at the end of the exam, but I always think to myself, how was he not disqualified earlier between phases 3 to 4 when he had killed those 2 applicants randomly because he was frustrated that he wasn't able to get that ball from Netero. To give my final thoughts of the Hunter exam arc, the second phase of the exam was probably my least favorite aspect of the arc, while the fourth phase of the exam was my favorite. This is because of the tension that was building while Gon was following Hisoka and how it all built up to him successfully stealing Hisoka's badge. I've said it before, the Hunter exam arc is a really good introductory arc. It does well to introduce and flesh out characters, and it serves its purpose to introduce us to the world of Hunter x Hunter while also explaining to us the concept of hunters. Let me know your thoughts about the Hunter exam arc by leaving a comment under this video. Have you recently gone through this arc again, or has this video inspired you to re-experience it? I'd love to know how all of you have interpreted this arc, and if there are any things that I've missed out or I've forgotten to mention, then let me know. My next video will be covering the second Hunter x Hunter arc, the Zoldyck family arc, so subscribe and turn on the notifications to be the first one to watch my new video when it drops. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, then please consider supporting my channel on Patreon. I have multiple tiers with rewards including access to an exclusive Discord server, video scripts, as well as being the first to know about unreleased upcoming videos. Thank you for your time, and whatever you choose to contribute I will appreciate, and it will mean a lot to me.